So there's that one. Okay. Sorry to keep you guys waiting. I was having some audio issues again. I don't know if they're really cleared up or not. There was a lot of what do you call it? Glitching audio. So hopefully it's fixed. I'm not confident about that, but here we go, going live in the other chat. We are on book 15 of the Corpus Hermeticum, the Divine Pymander, the Secrets of Hermes Trismegistus. Wild how many of these we've done. Oh, I had to restart my computer, so now I got to bring the book back up. Since I started this series, actually, a lot has come to light in support of a lot of the ideas that are being presented here. If you guys watched my marathon stream, you probably noticed that world-class neuroscientists and people like Michael Levin have started to make references to as above, so below. And it's no longer just sort of fringy, what did somebody call me today, a pseudo-spiritual hack or something like that. Yeah, you know what I mean? The days of having that attitude projected onto us are running out, and I'm quite happy about that. Let me check in with the chat before we get started, make sure the audio is okay. Let me know if there's glitching or echo or anything. I mean, I can check myself, actually. Are we good? Sounds fine, right? Okay. So for now, we're all good. Yeah, but it's a tremendous time to be alive, really. There's a lot of existential threat. We always talk about that. But I think one of the things we learn from studying this kind of wisdom and applying it, by researching neuroscience and physics and all of these different disciplines, there does seem to be a teleology. There's an intelligence in nature. There's a point. It's going somewhere. It seems to me highly improbable that this would all be for naught and we would just end up hitting some sort of totalitarian brick wall or something. At the same time, we do have to take responsibility for that, because we are the chaos in the system. And so we have to determine how that expresses. The overwhelming majority of all systems are strict order, and the chaos is distributed in those systems in such a way that it doesn't interfere with the function of the system, right? So this has kind of led me to greater wisdom. I used to be of the opinion that we needed to just burn it all down and start over. And the feasibility of that is not, it's not there. Or maybe even the wisdom of it. So those of us that have heard the call, that understand the game and wish to play, really have to start doing everything we can to contribute to the engineering of the new social structure and political structures. And the old world is rapidly changing. So get out of the new one if you can't lend a hand, as Bob Dylan said 60 years ago or something like that. All right, so speaking of wisdom, the 15th book is Hermes Trismegistus of Truth to his son Thoth. And that actually, I should continue my thought from the introduction there. Truth is self-substantiating. Truth is self-generating, right? There are shadows, but there are that which remains. And that is another thing that kind of gives us all faith that there is some sort of point to the evolutionary process, that this is going somewhere. Not only is it going somewhere, it's going somewhere good. And by good, we mean favorable to the production of novelty, favorable to the expression of the creative impulse and life in general. To greater personal freedom, mitigated by a greater sense of personal responsibility, So, truth. Of truth, O Thoth, is it not possible that man, being an imperfect white, Let me blow this up a little more if I can. Yeah, there we go. Compounded of imperfect members, and having his tabernacle consisting of different and many bodies, should speak with any confidence. But as far as it is possible, and just, I say, that truth is only in eternal bodies, whose very bodies are also true. The fire is fire itself only and nothing else. The earth is earth itself and nothing else. The air is air itself and nothing else. The water, water itself and nothing else. For our bodies consist of all these, for they have of the fire, they have of the earth, and they have of the water and air, and yet there is neither fire nor earth, nor water, nor air, nor anything true. This requires a little bit of unpacking, and it's there's a lot of like really interesting related concepts from the Western occult tradition that are kind of alluded to here. The elemental versions of fire and earth and water and air are not exactly the same as the physical elements. They are more in the nature of archetypal expressions, you know. And the whole holographic mind theory is gaining ground, I think. And this is actually sort of related to that because they say the all is in the all, right? And if you look in the occult writings of like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, for example, you'll see references to things like fire of water, water of air, earth of fire. And you realize that what it means is that if you freeze water, it becomes hard like earth. If you heat metal sufficiently, it will liquefy water of earth, and so on. You know, by applying oftentimes one element to another, you can get it to express the element that is not present, you know. This is also the great secret of alchemy, that by the interaction of two things of opposite qualities or a different nature, a third thing arises of a higher order, you know. And that is really applicable to our moment in history, right? Because we have all this potential that is aggregating massively. And then we have an equal quantity of threat. And as these two forces converge, something will emerge that represents progress, we hope. Was there something else I should say about that? Oh, yeah, actually, there in most ancient cultures, are actually three elements, and those are fire, air, and water, because earth is derivative of the others, right? And this is reflected on every level. In physics, we have the four fundamental forces of physics, although gravity is not really one of them. It's more of an aggregate or a byproduct of the function of the others, right? We also have this in music. The three fundamental triad tones of a chord, you know, the three notes of a chord, but the seventh is added, the fourth, but it's not really a fundamental tone, you know. So that all also is as above, so below kind of explained. So let's continue here. And if at the beginning our constitution had not truth, how could men either see the truth or speak it or understand it, only except God would? All things therefore upon earth, O Thoth, are not truth but limitations of the truth, and yet not all things neither, for there are but few that are so. But the other things are falsehood and deceit, O Thoth, and opinions, like the images of the fancy or appearance. And when the fancy hath an influence from above, then it is an imitation of truth. But without the operation from above, it is left a lie. And as an image shows the body described, and yet it is not the body of that which is seen, as it seems to be, and yet it is seen to have eyes, but it sees nothing, and ears, but it hears nothing at all. And other things hath the picture, but they are false, deceiving the eyes of the beholder, whilst they think they see the truth, and yet they are indeed but lies. As many, therefore, as see not falsehood see the truth. If, therefore, we do understand and see every one of these things as it is, then we see and understand true things. But if we see or understand anything besides or otherwise than that which is, we shall neither understand nor know the truth. This is a difficult one to manage in reality, because one of our great issues right now is that people have been heavily indoctrinated. They have been sort of trained to see some things and not see other things. And the reality is that as humans, we basically are the same. We're different, but we're the same, right? And if these mirages were resolved and dissolved, it would be very easy for people to see the truth. The truth is self-substantiating. It's obvious. Unless it is concealed deliberately, it shines as bright as the light of the sun. And unfortunately, there's a lot of effort being put into keeping people focused on their myths. People don't live in their realities, they live in their myths, as Robert Anton Wilson. They tolerate their realities and live in their myths, I think is the correct quote from Mr. Robert Anton Wilson. The resolution to that, interestingly enough, I think comes indirectly. It is not necessary to free someone from their political bondage, their political indoctrination, by confronting them directly. If they're willing to observe and learn about psychology and natural processes and a whole host of things, that revelation of truth will serve to inform their perceptual apparatus in such a way as they can see the truth everywhere. So, and this is really important, because when people are carrying a lot of cognitive dissonance and you confront them, you will not get a good reaction whether you're right or wrong. It doesn't matter. But if you can direct their attention to something that is not as confrontational, that exhibits truths in a way that is, applicable here, it'll sort of transfer in their processing. Let me check in with the chat again, see how you guys are doing. Fine, I guess. All right. Where were we at? Is truth therefore upon earth, O Father? Hermes says, thou does not miss the mark, O son. Truth indeed is nowhere at all upon earth, O Thoth, for it cannot be generated or made. But concerning the truth, it may be that some men to whom God will give the good seeing power may understand it. So that unto the mind and reason there is nothing true indeed upon earth, but unto the true mind and reason all things are fancies or appearances or opinions. Thoth asks, must we not therefore call it truth to understand and speak the things that are? And Hermes responds, but there is nothing true upon earth. Thoth asks, how then is this true, that we do not know anything true? How can that be done here? And Hermes responds, O son, truth is the most perfect virtue and the highest good itself, not troubled by matter, not encompassed by a body, naked, clear, unchangeable, venerable, unalterable good. But the things that are here, O son, are visible, incapable of good, corruptible, passable, dissolvable, changeable, continually altered, and made of another. This kind of attitude bugs me a little bit, that like everything, it's kind of similar to, Gnosticism. And generally Hermeticism is considered more neutral about the demiurgos and life and creation. But sometimes it kind of drifts into this, nothing that is physical is capable of good. I think that's a bit dramatic, and I don't know that it's even a healthy attitude to have. I mean, I kind of know what he means, but it's, that attitude. Also that, you need some special sight conferred by God in order to perceive reality as it actually is. I think it may seem that way sometimes because people are so heavily indoctrinated and they're running on the animal soul level of their awareness, so much. But I also strongly disagree with that. I think that any consistent exposure to truth will sort of inculcate it in people and allow them to perceive it more easily. And it's, what's it called when like a snowball gets bigger and bigger, like it aggregates and accelerates exponentially once the person has been pushed off the cliff. They discover they have wings, generally. Um, the things therefore that are not true to themselves, how can they be true? For everything that is altered is a lie, not abiding in what it is, but being changed. It shows us always other and other appearances. Is not man true, O Father? As far forth as he is a man, he is not true, Son. For that which is true hath of itself alone its constitution, and remains and abides according to itself, such as it is. But man consists of many things, and doth not abide of himself, but is turned and changed, age after age, idea after idea, or form after form, and this while he is yet in the tabernacle. And many have not known their own children after a little while, and many children likewise have not known their parents. Is it then possible, O Thoth, that he who is so changed as is to not be known should be true? No, on the contrary, he is falsehood, being in many appearances of changes. But do thou understand the true to be that which abides the same and is eternal? But man is not ever therefore not true, but man is a certain appearance, and appearance is the highest lie or falsehood. One reflection of this that is helpful, I think, reflection, of course. Light is unchangeable. At the speed of light, there is no time, so it is eternal, and it reveals all, right? And then everything is light in a standing wave, too. So once you understand the nature of truth, as I was referring earlier to, you look at different systems and you see it. If you take a ball at the same velocity, consistent, and spin it around a circular track and look at it from above, or if you look at it from the side, it appears to be like like it's rolling in a straight line, right? And the equation that describes this basically gives a wave pattern. There's too much to really go into I don't even know if that's clear enough, but there is some correlation there in the function of these objects, in my mind at least, between the point wave or particle wave duality of light and also the fact that anything that is, whatever something is constructed of, right, it will function in accordance with its true substance, So that's just kind of a clue, I guess, as to how this kind of thinking is applied. And then also it brings us to the fundamental purpose of hermetic ritual magic and all of the fraternities, and really anyone that is really, really smart throughout history has said this in one way or another, that the discovery of the true will and the development of the capacity and the discipline to execute that will are the primary thing of importance. And the idea is basically just the same as what he's saying, that there is within all of these things that are false and that change and that have appearances and decay and dissolve, there is some fundamental thing that is eternally true. And that is the primary focal point, for anybody that has wisdom, I guess. But these eternal bodies, Father, are they not true, though they be changed? Everything that is begotten or made and changed is not true. But being made by our progenitor, they might have had true matter. But these also have in themselves something that is false in regard of their change, for nothing that remains not in itself is true. What shall one say, Father, that only the sun, which besides the nature of other things is not changed but abides in itself, is truth? Did we do this one last week? I'm starting to feel like we already did this. I know I started it. I thought I started it and then went back thinking it would be better to start it from the beginning. But I'm starting to worry that we actually did this one last time and I didn't check. If so, I was probably different this time. Only the sun has not changed. It is truth, and therefore is he only entrusted with the workmanship of the world, ruling and making all things, whom I do both honor and adore his truth. And after the one and first, I acknowledge him, the workman. What therefore dost thou affirm to be the first truth, O Father? The one and only, O Thoth, that is not of matter, that is not in a body, that is without color, without figure or shape, immutable, unalterable, which always is, but falsehood, O Son, is corrupted. And corruption hath laid hold upon all things on earth, and the providence of the true encompasseth and will encompass them. For without corruption there can be no generation consist. Oh yeah, I think that's where we stopped last time, maybe. For corruption followeth every generation, that it may again be generated. For those things that are generated must of necessity be generated of things that are corrupted, and the things generated must needs be corrupted, that the generation of things may not stand still or cease. And this is a crazy one because it kind of brings us to the fundamental mystery of the universe. If you, yeah, I know I make this analogy a lot, but if you want to grow an oak tree, you have to have an acorn. And the reason the acorn can grow an oak tree is that it has the information. It's happened before, you know. And on a universal scale, most physicists believe that information is not lost at the quantum level, but it is at the thermodynamic level. So that would suggest that all of these things that are developing in the universe, each individual person, every single constituent of it, the programming was already in the seed of the thing when it generated. The problem with this, of course, is if there was a beginning, where did the information come in the first place? And the only answer that I can come up with that isn't in violation of any of these principles is that it started very basic, and there are fluctuations even at the tiniest quantum level. And over, you know, lots and lots of cycles, those variations led to slight changes that allowed for development, you know. So it is true that the universe just cycles like this and, you know, expands, collapses, basically, as the Kabbalah described. But it would be totally pointless if there weren't some sort of changes, right? I mean, it would just be hell, really, doomed to repetition. And so, yeah, that's what I think about that. Consequently, the things that are generated of corruption are false, as being sometimes one thing, sometimes another. For it is impossible they should be made the same things again, and that which is not the same, how is it true? Therefore, O son, we must call these things fancies or appearances. And if we will give a man his right name, we must call him the appearance of manhood, and a child the fancy or appearance of a child, an old man the appearance of an old man, young man, so on and so forth. For neither is a man a man, nor a child, nor a young man, nor an old man, but the things that pre-exist and that are being changed are false. These things understand thus, O son, as these false operations having their dependence from above, even of the truth itself. Which being so, I do affirm that falsehood is the work of the truth. You know, there's a ton of things that we can spin out of this, really. But I talked about light and how light expresses as, you know, the fundamental constituent element of everything. Things express aspects of light, the nature of light. Another great example of that is how everything is on a spectrum, as is light, right? This is one of the real secrets, I guess, to understanding reality in a way that is holistic, you know, to understand that every single potential, which is basically the vector of the same algorithm, which is Fibonacci, basically at infinite angles and velocities and amplitudes. And so, you know, expressing its fundamental nature as light. And the other thing I was thinking about is Fibonacci, because as we have looked deeper and deeper underneath the wiring under the board, we have seen more and more expressions of this, right? This algorithm, basically, you know, DNA functions the same way that it does. It goes back and copies, and then it moves forward, expanded, and it just does this forever. You know, I mean, you guys know, I don't need to give you a lesson on Fibonacci. I'm sure you guys are aware, but, you know, financial markets can be fairly well predicted with it. You know what I mean? It's this one underlying function that is the truth, and yet it generates all of these different things that aren't really the truth. That pattern is the truth. All of the other stuff that it generates also decays. But apparently it's eternal and consistent and everywhere, and, you know. So I'll check in with the chat again and see how everyone's doing. How's it going? Greetings from, are you saying from Tennessee? Yeah. Nice. Down south. I'm from the south. Basically Virginia originally. Oh man, did I just close the thing? Let me open that back up. By the way, you guys, we are still working on our fundraising efforts, so please, I started to write that. Please like the videos, consider subscribing, turn on your bell notifications. You can make one-time contributions to the channel. I was off all week because our internet went down, which was kind of a bummer. I felt like I was really, you know, tuning back into inspiration and making some progress, and then the internet stopped working for almost an entire week. Oh man, now we got to scroll all the way down to, I think we're nearing the end of this. And I guess the Book of Asclepius, actually the Lament of Asclepius, isn't part of this. I thought it was. We'll have to look that up next time because it's kind of essential. It's almost the point of all of this. So this is 17. We're looking for 16, right? There we go. The 16th book of Hermes Trismegistus, that none of the things that are can perish. Of course, we have to have a direct contradiction of, you know, and it's true. Everything is true and false, and it's true and false to say these things are true and false is not mystical gibberish, you know. And I know I've said this a million times, but, you know, matter is solid, but it's empty space, and so on and so forth. You'll not find anything that doesn't contain its contradiction. It's like a structural component of the universe. But then, you know, what we're understanding from taking this like bird's eye view look at all of this stuff is that it doesn't just apply to like physical objects. It applies to all systems, civilizations, moments in time. You know what I mean? And this is very handy knowledge to have because you literally look out into the world and understand exactly why everything is as it is. And your brain develops, partly at least, because of this sort of practice at pattern recognition, the ability to predict things in a way that is pretty uncanny and useful to an extent. We must now speak of the soul and body, O son, after what manner the soul is immortal, and what operation that is which constitutes the body and dissolves it. But in none of these is death, for it is a conception of a name, which is either an empty word, or else it is wrongly called death, by taking away the first letter instead of immortal. We get mortal, I guess it's two letters, but you know. For death is destruction, but there is nothing in the whole world that is destroyed. For if the world be a second God, and an immortal living white is being, by the way, I should just say being every time we come to that word. It is impossible that any part of an immortal living being should die. But all things that are in the world are members of the world, especially man, the reasonable living being. For the first of all is God, the eternal, unmade, and the workman of all things. The second is the world, made by him after his own image, and by him holden together and nourished and immortalized, and is from its own Father ever living. So that as immortal, it is ever living and ever immortal. For that which is ever living differs from that which is eternal. For the eternal was not begotten or made by another. And if it were begotten or made, yet it was made by itself, not by any other, but it was always made. For the eternal, as it is eternal, is the universe. For the Father himself is eternal of himself, but the world was made by the Father, ever living and immortal. Not so sure about that. And as much matter as there was laid up by him, the Father made it all into a body, and swelling it, made it round like a sphere, endued it with quality, being itself immortal, and having eternal materiality. The Father, being full of ideas, sowed qualities in the spheres, and shut them up in a circle, deliberating to beautify with every quality that which afterwards should be made. Then, clothing the universal body with immortality, lest the matter, if it would depart from this composition, should be dissolved into its own disorder. For when the matter was incorporeal, O Son, it was disordered. And it hath here the same confusion daily resolved about other things. Endued, I think it should say imbued with qualities in point of augmentation and diminution, which men call death, being indeed a disorder happening about earthly living beings. For the bodies of heavenly things have one order, which they have received from the Father at the beginning, and is by the instauration, I don't know that word, of each of them, kept indissoluble. But the instauration of earthly bodies is their consistence, and their dissolution restores them into indissoluble, that is, immortal. And so there is made a privation of sense, but not a destruction of bodies. Now the third living being is man, made after the image of the world, and having by the will of the Father a mind above other earthly beings. And he hath not only a sympathy with the second God, but also an understanding of the first. For the second God he apprehends as a body, but the first he understands as incorporeal and the mind of the good. And doth not this living being perish? Speak advisedly, O Son, and learn what God is, what the world, and what an immortal being, and what a dissoluble one is. And understand that the world is of God and in God, but man of the world and in the world. The beginning and end and consistence of all is God. Asclepius. Let's see how much more we have. Oh, not much. I suppose we'll just finish. How did I get lost here? The 17th book of Hermes Trismegistus, to Asclepius, to be truly wise. One of the kind of like occult theories about this process of the universe that comes to mind from some of the things he mentioned in the last book is that, you know, it starts out basically as this absolute nothingness, and by some process that we cannot conceive of, something happened. And long story short, it, you know, develops until all the possibilities available to it are exhausted, and then it collapses. If you want to use Penrose's terms in physics, what happens is that particles collide with their antiparticles, and they leave nothing but photons behind, so eventually the universe just becomes light again. And one of the reasons that we don't experience the sort of fairy tale god behaviors, you know, that you would think you would if there was a sky god of that type, is that the universe is developing its sort of omniscience as it goes, as a consequence of the complexification of its constituent elements and the experiences of those sentient things in it. And so at the very end of the process is the only time that this totally omnipotent, omniscient, well, I don't know about omnipotent, but omniscient, you know, God is fully formulated. And that idea actually is present in several different religions and now physics, maybe. So to Asclepius, to be truly wise, because my son, taught in thy absence, would needs learn the nature of the things that are, he would not suffer me to give over as coming very young to the knowledge of every individual, till I was forced to discourage to him many things at large, that his contemplation might from point to point be more easy and successful. But to thee I have thought good to write in few words, choosing out the principal heads of the things then spoken, and to interpret them more mystically, because thou hast both more years and more knowledge of nature. All things that appear were made and are made. Those things that are made are not made by themselves, but by another. And there are many things made, but especially all things that appear and which are different and not like. If the things that be made and done by another, there must be one that must make and do them, and he unmade and more ancient than the things that are made. And I think the best evidence for this really comes to us from evolution right now, because there are not even animals, organisms, a tree, for example, that have stopped developing parts of themselves that get them killed by humans. And they don't know what part is getting them killed. That means that there's some intelligence that does understand that has some sort of oversight in the process of evolution. There's no way around it. If that's really what's going on, there's no way around that fact. So, kind of a huge development that is being either completely ignored or deliberately suppressed. And that is awfully convenient for the overlords, because their biggest nightmare is that everyone becomes illuminated. And the fact that people are so quick to disregard things that are paradigm shifting, they really don't even have to try that hard to suppress it. People just roll their eyes and think you're an idiot. Even well after science, I was told in junior high school, which was 97, that it was impossible to transmute elements. And that happened in 1983 in a laboratory for the first time, it's mind-blowing that things like that can take 14 years. I don't know when schools stopped teaching that wasn't possible. And really, when physicists observed that particles could be changed to other particles, and they literally call it transmutation to this day from alchemy, they should have known that if particles can be transmuted, then elements can too. This isn't hard. And again, this is when I talk about how if science had not been so arrogant and had inculcated this kind of thinking, they would have made a tremendous amount more progress much more rapidly. It really has been a sort of tragic condition of our reality for the last 150 years that this has been the case. I've even heard several modern physicists, when asked, say that Newton was the greatest genius in human history, more than Einstein or anyone else. And he was all about alchemy and and other things that these guys would probably roll their eyes at. And it's okay, does it make sense to you that you don't take this guy seriously unless he's conforming to your ontological model or whatever the hell? Right, a little bit dildos. If the things that are made and done be made and done by another, okay, we read that. For I affirm the things that are made to be made by another, and it is impossible that of the things that are made, any should be more ancient than all, but only that which is not made. He is stronger and one, and only knowing all things indeed, as not having anything more ancient than himself. For he bears rule both over multitude and greatness, and the diversity of the things that are made, and the continuity of the fracture, and of the operation. Moreover, the things that are made are visible, but he is invisible. For this cause he maketh them, that he may be visible, and therefore he makes them always. Thus it is fit to understand, and understanding to admire, and admiring to think thyself happy, thou knowest thy natural father. For what is sweeter than a natural father? Who therefore is this, or how shall we know him? Or is it just to describe unto him alone the title and appellation of God, or of the Maker, or of the Father, or all three? That of God because of his power, the Maker because of his working and operation, and the Father because of his goodness. For power is different from the things that are made, but act or operation in that all things are made. Wherefore, letting go all much and vain talking, we must understand these two things: that which is made, and him which is the maker. For there is nothing in the middle between these two, nor is there any third. Therefore, understanding all things, remember these two, and think that these are all things, putting nothing into doubt, and neither of the things above nor of the things below, neither of things changeable nor things that are in darkness or secret. For all things are but two things, that which maketh and that which is made, and the one of them cannot depart or be divided by the other. For neither is it possible that the maker should be without the thing made, for either of them is the selfsame thing. Therefore cannot the one of them be separated from the other, no more than a thing can be separated from itself. For if he that makes be nothing else but that which makes alone, simple, uncompounded, it is of necessity that he makes the thing to himself, to whom it is the generation of him that maketh, to be also all that is made. For that which is generated or made must necessarily be generated or made by another, but without the maker, that which is made, neither is made, nor is, for the one of them without the other hath lost his proper nature by the privation of the other. So if these two be confessed, that which maketh and that which is made, then they are one in union, this going before and that following. And that which goeth before is God the maker, and that which follows is that which is made. Why are we repeating this over and over again? And let no man be afraid because of the variety of things that are made or done, lest he should cast an aspersion of baseness or infamy upon God, for it is the only glory of him to do or make all things. And this making or fracture is as it were the body of God, and to him that maketh or doeth there is nothing evil or filthy to be imputed, or there is nothing thought evil or filthy. For these are passions that follow generation, as rust doth copper, or as excrements do the body. For neither did the coppersmith make the rust, nor the maker the filth, nor God the evilness, but the vicissitude of generation doth make them, as it were, to blossom out. For this cause did make change to be, as one should say, the purgation of generation. This is kind of an interesting thing to consider, and it's something that's difficult for people to wrap their heads around often. We almost don't want to believe some of this stuff, I guess, that seems to be obviously true. And one component of this is that, everything is generated by its opposite. I'm not going to expand on that right now. I'm just going to leave it right there. But sort of connected to this is that, he was talking about how God didn't make the rust. That's not really true. The processes that make rust are part of they're an expression of the function of natural laws, right? So but I had this idea many years ago that the positive generative, gestalt of creation is the active force, and evil is really sort of a non-active thing. It's a product of the chaos. It's not a force the way that creation and creativity and love, you could even say, are. And I've heard that actually expressed even by a Christian mystic that said that evil is not really active, and it's not God. It is the absence of God that allows this chaos. That it's, as he was saying, these things are like rust, the byproduct of a generative process. I hope that made sense. But the vicissitude of generation doth make them, as it were, to blossom out, and for this cause did make change to be, as one should say, the purgation of generation. Moreover, it is lawful for the same painter to make both heaven and the gods and the earth and the sea and men and brute beasts and inanimate things and trees. And is it possible for God to make these things? Oh, the great madness and ignorance of men in things that concern God. For men think so, suffer, that which is most ridiculous of all, for professing to bless and praise God, yet in not ascribing to him the making or doing of all things, they know him not. And besides their not knowing him, they are extremely impious against him, attributing unto him passions as pride or oversight or weakness or ignorance or envy. This is one of the craziest things about the standard version of Christianity, that they really think that, this omniscient creator, this all-powerful being is going to have these petty jealousies and, just toxic and just insane and jealous and, like obviously, what is the word, like self, it doesn't have a lot of self-esteem. This god of theirs. For if he do not make or do all things, he is either proud or not able or ignorant or envious, which is impious to infirm. For God hath only one passion, namely good, and he that is good is neither proud nor impotent nor the rest, but God is good itself. For good is all power, to do or make all things, and everything that is made by God, that is by the good, and that can make or do all living, or that can do all things. See then how he maketh all things, and how the things are done, that are done, and if thou wilt learn, thou mayest see an image thereof very beautiful and like. Look upon the husbandman, how he casteth seeds into the earth, here wheat, there barley, and elsewhere other seeds. Look upon the same man, planting a vine, or an apple tree, or a fig tree, or some other tree. So doth God in heaven sow immortality in the earth, change in the whole life and motion. And these things are not many, but few, and easily numbered, for they are all but four. God and generation, in which are all things. They are all but four. The four fundamental forces of physics, the four elements, the four directions, the four archangels, the four legs of this chair. So let's see here. Is this really it? Or is this the end? Because if it's not, then I'm going to finish. No, looks like these are all blank pages. So, to whom it may concern, students of the occult science, searchers after truth, and theosophists who may have been disappointed in their expectations of sublime wisdom being freely dispensed by Hindu Mahatmas are cordially invited to send in their names to the editor of this work, when, if found suitable, can be admitted after a short probationary term as members of an occult brotherhood who do not boast of their knowledge or attainments, but teach freely and without reserve all they find worthy to receive. So this would probably have been the Rosicrucians or early Freemasons. Any other weirdness in this? Yeah, there is more writing at least. Let's see. I don't know if any of this is... Oh, wow. Yeah. We should look for some of this stuff, actually. Hermes, Virgin of the World. Companion volume to the Divine Pymander, Magnetic Magic. Eliphas Levi was one of the people that Crowley claimed to be a reincarnation of, and also he is the one that, the image of Baphomet. Key to the Grand Mysteries, Magic Unveiled by Baron Dupotet. I've never heard of him. What else do we got here? Is it all blank? Yep. That's a wrap, guys. That is the end, my friends. Let's discuss maybe a little bit. Let me fix my screen up so it's a little bit prettier. How do we do that? This thing here. The hell, man? Come on. There you go. And what else? Yeah, that's nice, right? Beautiful. Now let me check in with the chat and see if you guys have any questions, comments, or subjects that you would like me to weigh in on. I'm down. Why do they call him a Satanist? Who? Yes, I've heard of the Silva method. I actually knew a guy whose father worked directly with him. It was really strange guy, actually. his father left him a ton of money, and he built all these amplifiers and whatnot, and other gadgets. And one day I asked him, "How did you learn to make all this stuff? Did you read books, or like what? Did you go to school for engineering?" And he said, "No, no, no. I was abducted by aliens when I was 9." And he pulled up his pant leg, and he had 3 scoops taken in the tetractys, the Pythagorean, 3 dots in the shape of a triangle. And you'll see it when Freemasons abbreviate things that are important. They'll put it between it. Yeah, and he said that it just sort of all this information just downloaded into his brain while he was on their UFO, including how the ships worked. And then he started talking about how the ships were steered and what propelled them and stuff in such depth that I couldn't imagine he was making it up. It just, especially if you couldn't even read. And it's true. I looked around. We were talking in the living room. I didn't see any books anywhere. So, yeah, I mean, that's not totally on topic. And if you're asking if I've studied it, no, I have not at all. Not one little bit. Perhaps I should. So somebody was asking, like, somebody's a Satanist. Who is that you're asking about? Why did they call him a Satanist? Are you talking about Crowley or who? All right, well, I see other questions. Is the true light of God an unseen light, and the light that we see is a source of information? I don't think that light is untrue. I think it is, basically spirit manifest. As what we call spirit is basically light. All the descriptions that we get from great mystics and, prophets and whatnot of the highest states of consciousness, or God itself is light. And, Jesus in the Bible, of course, he took this from Hermes, whoever wrote the Bible. I am the light of this world, the sun, obviously, but and it's eternal, it's unchangeable, and it gives life to everything. I don't know how untrue you could frame that. And the rest of the light that exists in the universe is possibly of a higher order in some sense. I've often suspected that when you take psychedelics and you turn the filter in the nervous system down, and you see these, everyone sees them the same way, and I know this because graphic designers have made them, and that's exactly the same colors, same, everyone sees this the same way, which suggests it's there. Like if you look out into the jungle and you see a jaguar and you have 10 people with you and you're like, what is that? Everyone says jaguar, then you're like, okay, it's really there. So I think that and your pupils dilate, right? Which is what they do when they need more light. So I think that that also has something to do with the fact that we get all this information when we take psychedelics that seems to come from nowhere. We're able to see these normally invisible, the light spectrum, and extract information from it, and it carries a different type of information than the light that we normally see. That's why it's there. Everything has a purpose, and it's all dictated by the law of necessity, right? So I don't really even know that I believe in another world where we would have an afterlife and that we're here and God is not. If there's a God, to me, its mind is the laws and its body is the matter. And this last book of the Corpus Hermeticum that we were reading, he was talking about how you can't separate the maker from the made, and that is, I think, one of the insane blasphemies of Christianity and a lot of other religions, that they remove God from the creation. Like if you say that table is God and I'm God, they get mad. And actually I used to say stuff like that in my redneck, not friends really, but the people around me in elementary school even would run away because they were afraid I was going to get hit by lightning. So this kind of extracting divinity and saying, no, this is all bad. And I don't think that makes any sense. If there is a consciousness that interpenetrates everything, and it has oversight in the process of creation, and I don't see it as separate, and I don't really see all this stuff as false or a trick or a trap. I think our tendency to frame our metaphysical models, in this sort of like good versus evil comic book kind of way, and thinking that the earth is a prison for bad souls and all this kind of stuff. I really think that that's all sort of inherited superstition, and it's just not really consistent with a more mature, evolved, like, something on the level of a god that could dictate those sort of things would have a better plan than prison planets and stuff, It, yeah, I think it's all basically like the consciousness that we call God kind of exploded and is forming and is informed into everything. And I don't really believe in even deceptive like intelligences, because if we really had a bunch of demons and like evil spirits trying to sabotage us all the time, we would have been gone a long time ago. We have no defense against that. You wouldn't be able to see it coming. There's nothing stopping them all day. No one would ever be safe, even for a moment, in their own bed. I don't really believe in false lights. There's the light, and that's it. If there's any false light, it's human delusion and misperceptions and misapprehensions. It's not some diabolical demon that's trying to lure you into some false path too, And the thing about that idea, it's really strange to me how paranoid people get about that, about being lured down a false path. If you don't know right from wrong enough to be able to tell if some idea is not helpful or, even evil, that, what I'm getting at is this idea from Christianity, or I'm sure other religions have it, like Islam. This is the name of God. You have to do these things this way. You have to wear this thing, and you got to flop around on the ground 6 times a day at this time, and you know what I mean, like. This idea that like somewhere there's a true path and everyone that doesn't find it is fucking damned. That's kind of true. But it's just the truth that you need to find to elevate yourself above the potential for this kind of suffering and misery. It's not, I really don't think it's about like figuring out which like fairy tale to have faith in. It's about separating the wheat from the chaff and finding everything good and useful and developing real world wisdom and navigational skills and having the discipline to apply them. Electromagnetic spectrum. Do you have any information on the Greek god Phanes or the Gnostic god Abraxas? I mean, kind of vaguely. The first one, I feel, wasn't that also the light, like a light bearer, a type of archetypal thing? Let me see if I haven't studied this stuff for a long time. Primeval deity who was born from the cosmic egg at the beginning of creation. Yeah, there is something really important about this. I remember a deity of light and goodness. So yeah, it's a light bearer to bring light or to shine. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I do know this. It's basically a version of Lucifer, and this demonization of the light bearer is Abraxas also is the sun. It adds to 365. I think it's like a chicken demon or something. But what was I getting at with this? Yeah, the demonization of the light bearer has levels of reasons why they did that. The sort of technical metaphysics that you get from Hermeticism and different occult traditions, that's how it should be done. Faith is not helpful. Certainty is what you're looking for. And, when you look around the ancient world, everyone knew that the sun was projecting our life and light and consciousness, that our soul was connected to it. It's even in the language, S-O-U-L and S-O-L, for the sun, and you put U in there in the cosmic intelligence, and then you get an individual soul instead of the S-O-L, the sort of general consciousness. And throughout the world, you notice other things too, that like the relationship between gold and light and stars was understood by every major indigenous culture that I can think of, from the North America, Central America, South America, at least, the big ones like the Inca, obviously throughout the Middle East and whatnot. So what bears the light? The sun, and one of the objectives that the Roman consulate had in mind when they were engineering these religions, Christianity specifically, is that they wanted to make sure that people didn't reconnect with those real fundamental truths, because they're very empowering and liberating, and it's not really possible to exert influence over people that are legitimately connected to the universal mind. It just can't be done. And so, that's the reason for wrapping the truth in myth, which actually I think it was Pope Benedict XV, said, we wrapped the truth in myth for the people. That's why Jesus walks on water like light sparkles on water. That's why I am the light of the world, and all that kind of stuff. The morning star is Venus, but it's also the sun. And even Lucifer, there's a clue to this, given in the fact that how hast thou fallen from heaven, Lucifer, O morning star? In Ezekiel, the same sentiment reappears, or is the name is applied also to Jesus by himself, because he's saying, I'm the sun, really. I am the bright and shining morning star. Yeah. So, but there's more, really, to this, because the serpent in the Garden of Eden, right, was telling the truth. And nowhere in that book, as far as I know, does it actually equate in the original Hebrew, does it equate the snake with the devil? This is something that was done after the fact. And the snake told the truth. He said, if you eat of this, Syrian rue and acacia and trip balls and know all the stuff that Elohim knows, you verily thou shalt not die. Thou shalt live and know as Elohim does. And they ate of the tree and they did not die. And, and here comes Elohim again, all pissed off, like, wait, I told you under threat of death that you were to remain ignorant. Excuse me? What? This is the good guy? So, in a sense, I think the demonization of Lucifer was the demonization of consciousness itself, and a deeper level of the Lucifer myth. And if you guys watched I think it was the first episode of this Hermes thing, it becomes really obvious that Hermes knew that matter was light in a standing wave. He basically says that, there's lots and lots of information or evidence at this point that certain groups of mystics back in the day knew a whole lot of things about physics that couldn't be known. Even the idea of an atom is 2,500 years old. But you look at the Kabbalah and how light becomes matter, and matter becomes light again at the end of the process, and in the tree of life diagram. Now we have Penrose with his CCC theory that suggests that that's exactly what happens, and so on and so forth. So another version of this is that the light bearer is also an oscillating wave. It's a light wave. And that is the root of our consciousness, right? So if you had this eternal nothingness in the beginning, and suddenly there's this like impulse, right? This light, and it wants to do stuff. This eternal nothingness, that is rebellion against that. They turned it into a sort of an allegory, because it wasn't really like getting up in God's face and being like, bitch, I'll do what I want. You know what I mean? It was just that anything that had any kind of function or motion or light or stain or shape or anything went against this eternal perfection. And so it descended into matter, and the other ones followed it, right? Because they all also became more dense. And that's also what is meant by the demiurgos, that there's this eternal perfection that is changeless, and it's always there, and it's basically like nothingness. And then there's this other impulse that through the symmetry of the oscillations of the wave compelled the primordial soup to symmetry and order, right? So this other thing, this light bearer, you could say, is really the creator of this world, and the true God has nothing to do with it. That's the reality that lies behind all of these myths, I think. So, see what else you guys got for me. Cheers, Dustin. Trying to scroll through, we can use the demiurge to evolve the plane. Well, it is the demiurge. You know, the whole thing is just made out of it, basically. Check the other chat for questions also. Yeah, Abraxas is fascinating. You know, when I was like 13 or something, most of the studying that I did happened on this stuff happened between like 13 and 15, just because I was trying to figure everything out. And I stumbled first on Huxley, I think, and that led to Joseph Campbell, who wrote on the mysteries. And actually said something really interesting about the Grateful Dead. He had traveled the world for, decades, almost a century probably, really, and he was looking for evidence that of real natural magic, amongst other things, but that was on his list. And he was a very straight guy, at least by appearances. I'm sure he tried psychedelics plenty, but he was a Harvard intellectual, one of the great minds of that century, and he said that he only actually found like undeniable, real, or perceived it to happen in two places: the jungles of Borneo and at Grateful Dead concerts. And he compared the shows actually to mystery rites, that this group mind that would erupt during these deities and celebrations where everyone was in an altered state, and then this sort of telepathic thing would occur with the band and the audience, and during those moments consciousness was changed. And he was like, this is a modern day mystery school. It's the same thing. Speaking of that, I'm going to try to do music tomorrow. I'm probably not going to stream much longer tonight because I need to practice some stuff. I've been working on some Tom Waits. If you haven't heard his newer song, All Hell Broke Loose, Luce. It's wild. First of all, it's a 75-year-old man doing this. Like, it's the most intense thing he's ever put out. It's super modern sounding. I was shocked. But yeah, he is an amazing creature. I actually had a run-in with him before I knew who he was, and my friend assumed I knew who he was, so he didn't tell me. And it wasn't until years later that I mentioned something to him. I was like, hey, do you listen to Tom Waits? I'd gotten into him, and he's like, are you serious right now? You remember at 4 a.m, he came running up to my car, wanting to ride to the ATM, and I was like, holy shit, man. What was I looking up, though? I feel like I decided I needed to look something up. Oh, yeah, I remember now. The fuck was that? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. The head of the archons, the sun, right? This is also something I don't really like, this idea. More demonization of the sun, really. And there are different perceptions of Abraxas depending on what school you're looking at. And this idea of archons, I actually recently just happened to be reading through this book written by, what the hell is his name? It's right there. Morals and Dogma by the 33rd Degree Mason. I don't remember his name right now. Doesn't really matter. Albert Pike. And he mentioned how the mysteries were perceived to be a threat in Egypt by the ruling class, and so they banned them. And this was around the time Pythagoras and Empedocles had come and taken initiation, and then they bailed back to Greece and started new mystery schools. And then the consulate figured out that it wasn't good for people to be illuminated, and they banned again. The archons are not entities. The archons were the magistrates that were sent into the mysteries in order to sabotage and steal secrets in order to construct Christianity and whatnot. So these stories about archons in the Gnostic tradition actually are just references to these humans that interfere in the process of the illumination of mankind. Yeah, there's a lot of different interpretations of Abraxas. There's the heretical version, which got people in a lot of trouble, where they said that he was good, and but again, the current like historical or generalized perception is that it was the evil head of the archons. So it's another case of demonizing sun worship. Long story short. By the way, you guys, I think I might have mentioned this before, but it's very helpful if you hit the like button, share, subscribe, become a patron. You get access to 6 years of material. What do you think of Stevie Ray Vaughan? Well, that's way off topic, but I will answer you. Don't think it will ever be possible for consciousness to switch bodies bypassing physical death. Yeah, it already is, I think. I think there's a number of ways that can happen, and I don't know that it has to be spiritual. I I think people tend to have a kind of like knee-jerk reaction and throw the baby out with the bathwater a lot. The human history, modernity, it hasn't been a mistake entirely. Modern medicine isn't all fraud. Like plants will help you for sure. I mean, I do retreats and whatnot, and I cured epilepsy, and that's not supposed to be possible. So, and from the first dose, he never had another seizure. From the first dose, and stopping his medication was supposed to cause seizures. So not only did he not have the seizure withdrawal from stopping the medication, I did not tell him to do that, by the way. He didn't even tell me he did it. Yeah, so, I'm not saying that's not valid, but it's the convergence of these things in an intelligent way that is, the point of it all. This is one of the sad things about AI and like Willow, the quantum computer that was contacting other universes or whatever already. Like, you think they're going to let the common people have access to that level of technology? Not unless we take it from them. So, right now we have Michael Levin basically figuring out how to reverse aging and damage in cells by manipulating transistors in the cells so they relate to the electromagnetic field differently. It's basically sort of the same idea as your brain can rewrite memories, right? So that's basically what he's doing, is changing how they read the memories in the field around you. And we also have all this evidence that cognition and likely consciousness actually arises from the subatomic, not from the level of the neuron, because we have non-neural cognition and slime molds and whatnot. And then also, there are plants that can count and do math. And yeah, I mean, you guys probably heard all this. I hope so anyways. You know what I mean? So basically, long story short, immortality is on the table right now for people that are wealthy enough. That's one of the reasons, I think, for population control, that it's not just that AI is about to render a tremendous percentage of humanity obsolete. Also, if the elite stop dying, what are we going to do with all these just extraneous people, it's a problem. So for sure, yep, absolutely. We're almost there. They've reversed aging in eyeball cells already. I mean, it's likely, I think, that the technology already exists and it's been suppressed, Levin was saying, I think, in just a few years ago, that in just a few years they would be able to regenerate limbs and brain cells and whatnot, which would bring back people in vegetative states. And it's really a mess, though. I mean, it's really a mess to open that level of Pandora's box. Yeah, it's yikes. Use AI to switch bodies. Well, oh yeah, the Stevie Ray Vaughan question. All right, yeah, I'll answer that, even though it has nothing to do with anything. I mean, it does because I'm playing music tomorrow, I guess. I've never been a huge fan, although his cover of that Hendrix song is incredibly difficult to play and really brilliant. Which one is it? You know, well, she's walking or whatever. What the fuck is it called? Anyways, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's probably his most famous song written about his mom. That's amazing. And, you know, I mean, in a way, I think just like the boomer generation in general was way too impressed with people that could just play basic blues riffs. You know, a lot of what he did was just, I mean, I have a guitar right there. It's just like the same pentatonic blues pattern, playing the same Albert King and BB King and Freddie King and, you know, who was that guy before Hendrix, Buddy Guy. You know what I mean? Like he just really was just recycling all this stuff, but he did it with an energy that, you know, very few people have. So, you know, it's not my thing, and I'm not super impressed by it in general, but I have heard live performances where the energy coming off of that guy was fucking terrifying, like so powerful that it's hard to believe it's real. So in that sense, you know, I'd probably go see him live, but I wouldn't like sit around listening to him. Just my honest opinion. Did I asked you guys to join the Patreon and whatnot? Yeah, I sure did. That's very helpful when people do that. Hey, it looks like someone did. Thank you, whoever that was. I'll give you a shout out next time. So, do we have any more questions or Little Wing? Yeah, that's correct. Yep. Yeah, it's just never been my thing, you know, like I've never really listened to Hendrix even that much, you know, it's not my style. When it comes to psychedelic music, I think the Grateful Dead pretty much win the whole game, like absurdly. And then, you know, Fish and even Frank Zappa, even though he wasn't deliberately being psychedelic. And then if I had to vote for like what I think is like the greatest musical accomplishment in human history, the Secret Chiefs album Book of Horizon is like, I don't even understand how it exists. And then Book M, people say is also really good, but I didn't really think it was as good as Book of Horizons. But I'll eat some mushrooms on Sunday and I'll listen to it all the way through. Maybe I'll have to report back with a different perception. So I'm starving. I don't know why. I just ate dinner before I came up here. So I'm going to get off of the internet, and then tomorrow we are having our Discord chat. So if you're a patron at the $10 tier or higher, please try to come because it's always a blast. And highly intelligent, highly interesting people, and weird stuff even manages to happen in there. The other day, somebody mentioned the devil, and then one of us logged in right at that moment, and their icon is Baphomet, like speak of the devil and he appears kind of thing. It was wild. But yeah, so 3 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, that's happening. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to stream. Last time I said I was going to play every song I knew until I, was done, and that was stupid because it turns out there's way too many of them. But I think I played 7 hours, and the sound is a lot better. I'm adding new songs, and I'm going to try to go through everything without repeating over the course of these marathon streams. So join us. Thank you for being here. Hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron, and I will see you